What's good, guys? What's the damn deal with all the All right, so I don't know if a lot of y'all know, but have you ever seen an interview with Dr. Dre where he's talking about how he found Eminem and he went through all these tapes that Jimmy Iovine had in his garage and all this stuff? Well, let me just tell you that that story is not real. That's a lie. This is how Eminem was really discovered, guys. Check this out. This is the real story. I was looking for this other video, but I could not find it. This guy broke it down really cool too. Um, yeah, but I couldn't find it, man. Oh, is it this one? Yeah, it's this one, guys. Check this out. Yup.
Here's how the average man's life would change if he never saw an ad again. Day 1, he would install Pi on his computer.
Check this out, guys.
Back in those days, I didn't have an artist to work with. I would go to Jimmy's house and have listening sessions.
In his own words, we hear Dr. Dre talking about the time he was with Jimmy Iovine and they found Eminem's tape.
He was trying to help me figure out where I was going to go with my music. He would take me down to his garage.
For years and years, I've heard this story about Dr. Dre going to his garage, popping in demo tapes, and just so happens one was Eminem's, and that's how Eminem was discovered. Well, I'm here to tell you they lied. So I've been wanting to tell this story forever, and recently some information has came to light that can actually corroborate my story. Every time I heard someone tell that story where Dre found a tape in his garage and randomly just put on Eminem, and that's how he was discovered, it would kind of annoy me. I would see it in comments on YouTube. I would hear people talking about it, and I just wanted the real story to be out there. Now, I know you're wondering, well, how do you know the real story? Well, back when I was pretty much a young kid, I interned at a few record labels. I always wanted to work in the record industry, but it never really panned out. But during that time where I was interning, I met a lot of people and found myself in certain situations, which years later I can look back on and think, wow, that was pretty cool. So I'm going to explain to you exactly how Eminem was discovered, and then later on I'm going to drop some information about his first album that you probably don't know. So I believe the year was 1997, and I had been invited over to a recording studio. And at the recording studio there was a dude named Evan, a dude named Dean, a guy named Aristotle, and then my friend who invited me over there. These guys were working on Aristotle's album. While I was listening to some new music that they were recording, the conversation of Eminem came up. I was told the story how Evan had discovered Eminem at a freestyle battle, and later on got his tape to Jimmy Iovine at Interscope Records. He had it with the help of Dean, and their plan was to blow up off of Eminem and then bring out their own rapper, Aristotle. I was also given a tape with no artwork, just a dub tape, which turned out to be the Slim Shady EP. So it turns out the Slim Shady EP dropped in December 10th of 1997. This was on Web Entertainment and was completed before he had met Jimmy Iovine, before he had met Dr. Dre. So what's kind of interesting, if you look at the track list for the Slim Shady EP, and then you compare it to the Slim Shady LP, which you probably know from 1999, which actually blew him up, you'll see some of the same songs. If I Had, Just Don't Give a Fuck, Just the Two of Us. And also look at that track, Ken Kniff, by Aristotle and Mark Bass. I thought that was interesting because all those songs were complete before he had even met Dr. Dre. Now, this is not taking anything away from Dr. Dre, one of the greatest hip-hop producers of our time. I just feel like maybe that was an unknown fact. Like maybe people thought Dre produced the entire album, but Eminem had 4, 5 songs completely finished that they actually used for his album.
Cassette tapes everywhere. And I remember him picking up this cassette tape.
Oh, that's cringe.
He pops this in. And I was like,
lying.
what the fuck and who the fuck is that?
He's lying. So I don't know if they rehearsed this, if they got together with a PR team to go over the story, but he's lying.
Fate can come from anywhere. When the intern in my office says to me, I saw this guy at the rap battle last night. I said, if you get me a CD, I will give it to Dre.
Here we see Jimmy Iovine himself refer to the real story, where he says, an intern at my office saw this guy in a rap battle, and I said, if you can get me a CD, I'll give it to Dre. So this corroborates what I'm saying, and it also corroborates what Evan Bogart is saying.
I played hooky. I left because Cassidy was like dead serious. And I went down to this freestyle contest in Inglewood, and I walked in and I proceeded to watch Eminem in this freestyle battle. You know, 8 Mile-esque, right? Like the movie, right?
Yeah.
And it was the Rap Sheet Rap Olympics. And he was competing in it. And I called my friend who I was in a rap group with, this kid Aristotle, to come down there. I was like, yo, you got to come down here and see this shit. And then I called my other best friend who I had just hired to replace me in the mailroom when I got promoted to A&R floater, this kid Dean Geislinger.
So if you research this, it all lines up. The only problem is Evan's name has been left out.
Who I had just hired to replace me in the mailroom when I got promoted to A&R floater, this kid Dean Geislinger, who was basically kind of like half living with his sister, half living at my house, and like called my mom, and like was part of my family. And I say that because I'll get to the point of that in a second.
Okay.
But he was my best friend. And these were my two best friends. And I called them to come down there to the freestyle contest. And they showed up a couple hours later. And it was like the semifinals. And M was like, you know, saying crazy things like, don't make my facial tissue a racial issue. Like all this like crazy shit that was like mind blowing. And so I went up to, he lost in the finals. He went up against this rapper named Otherwise from like a local rap group called Project Blowed.
I saw someone comment about this, and I just wanted to clarify. Project Blowed wasn't an actual rap group. It was more of like a workshop or a collective. And it's where a lot of the famous, really good underground MCs came out of. But don't discredit my boy, Evan. He knows what he's talking about. And
he's first round, he came out and he did this, like, they played this KRS-One song that was like Still Number One. You know the song Still Number One? I don't know, you may not know. But anyway, he did this like kind of shout out like verse. Like it was kind of like it wasn't really, like it was like a weird thing to pull in the finals of a freestyle battle. But anyway, he ended up losing in the finals, and he probably would have lost anyway because it was like hometown crowd, Inglewood, right?
So once again, everything Evan is saying is checking out. But just so I could paint a better picture of what this was like in 1997, this rap battle, here's Thurston Howell III.
I mean, because obviously you were a part of the Rap Olympics, right?
Yep.
Which were, for people who don't know, very pivotal to a lot of people's careers. But I mean, specifically, we always hear, you know, Eminem is synonymous with the Rap Olympics and his kind of a part of his story. And you were a part of his team when you did the Rap Olympics, right? Mm-hmm. Who'd you guys go against? Was it, I mean...
I believe it was Project Blowed.
Out of L.A.?
Yep. I believe they were the only ones that showed up. There was a long roster of teams that were supposed to be there from like every popular rap group that was out. Fugees was supposed to have a team. There was, you know, different representatives
different
from...
crews,
yep.
yeah.
And nobody showed up. Everybody on my team was a master in freestyling off the head.
Right.
You know, Juice, Eminem, myself, Wordsworth, Quest the Mad Lad. Like, sit in the room with us and you will fucking get blown. Even Craig G was out there hanging out with us, like staying with us and things like that. So, but it was a big moment, man.
I was going to say, like, for you, like, I just remember Eminem being a real backpack rapper, I guess, back then. If you knew about him, you knew about him.
So Kev is correct here. He was a real backpack rapper. I remember him not having the bleached blonde hair. He was a little bit overweight. He was known in the battling circle, but he didn't really have a buzz going yet. I remember going to a hip hop show in LA back in the late 90s. The headliner was Helta Skelta. I believe Razkaz was on the bill. And I remember seeing Eminem in the crowd as a fan. Just picture that. You're at a hip-hop show and you look over and you see Eminem standing next